Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Andrew Warburton and I'm speaking to you from my office at UKZN School of Music. I'm going to be presenting at the Hilton Festival this year a program entitled The Wanderer, Franz Schubert, which is an exploration of two of Schubert's greatest works, namely the Wanderer Fantasy and then his very last composition for piano, the great piano sonata in B-flat D960, which was written only a few months before he died. As you know, it's one of the great tragedies in the history of music that Schubert died so young, only at the very tender age of 31. He died even younger than Mozart did, who was 35. There's an epitaph on his tomb which reads, "Music has here buried a rich treasure, but far fairer hopes." So, you know, the tragedy of his early death was not lost even on his contemporaries. But nonetheless, he managed in his 31 years to write an incredible body of works, 9 symphonies, many piano sonatas, other various works for chamber combinations, a lot of chamber music, string quartets, a very great string quintet, which is written for 2 violins, viola, and 2 cellos, which is most unusual. Normally there's only 1 cello. And most noticeably is his composition of about 600 songs, or Lieder, which is just the German word for songs. And Schubert was preeminent in his composition of setting beautiful texts and poets to music, which he did 600 times in the course of his short life. It is often said that he used to jot down songs even when he was in the company of his friends. Sometimes having a meal in a restaurant, he would turn the menu and write a song on the reverse, whether it's an urban legend or not, but these legends do persist. And it's actually the world of song that permeates the world of the first work that I will play in this recital, which is the Wanderer Fantasy. This great work was written in 1822, so it's quite a middle period work of Schubert, and he used as the theme of the second movement the theme of one of his most famous songs, Der Wanderer, which means the wanderer, which hails from the previous year. Schubert used the theme as the slow movement theme in this work. It's not the first time that Schubert had made a parody, as it were, of one of his songs. He did that most famously in his Trout Quintet, when he used the theme of his famous melody Die Forelle, the trout, in the composition of his great piano quintet. So he did this. He seemed to enjoy using melodies and recycling them in later works. It's called a fantasy simply because there are 4 movements that are played without a break, as opposed to a sonata where there are clear-cut movements with breaks in between. Here, the various sections move into one another without break, and often with wonderful bridge sections moving seamlessly from the one to the other. So this Wanderer Fantasy is constantly on the lists of the most difficult works ever written for the piano. In fact, the great Russian pianist Sviatoslav Richter said that it was the most difficult work ever written for the piano. Well, that's obviously a matter of conjecture, but it is nonetheless extremely difficult, especially on a modern piano, because our modern pianos are much more heavier action than pianos of Schubert's day. So it's extremely exhausting to play this on a modern piano. There's nowhere to rest, particularly in the last movement. But nonetheless, it's a very thrilling piece that audiences do appreciate. So that's why we play it. I'm going to end this recital with a much more introverted work. This is now indeed the last piece that Schubert ever wrote for the piano, stemming from the early months of 1828, a few months before the composer died, as I've said before, at the very early age. And his last 3 piano sonatas are all imbued with that autumnal feel, as indeed many are other of Schubert's works from this last year, including the great song cycles Winterreise and Schwanengesang, Swan Song, which Schubert wrote at the same time. It was a very productive year, despite the fact that he was constantly suffering from ill health. he managed to write these incredibly sublime works. And one of the most sublime of all is this great sonata in B flat major, which I'll play for you in this recital. It's a very long work. It lasts about 40 minutes. This, unlike the fantasy, is in really more traditional form, sonata form, which composers from Mozart and Haydn had used, but imbued with Schubert's own style and unique sense of poignancy and melody. It's very, very intimate music. It's often been written about Schubert that he speaks to us in hushed tones. I'll just play the opening of this sonata. You can hear how it barely rises above pianissimo. In other words, it's almost all in a soft dynamic, and it doesn't really rise much beyond that. That just gives you a little taste of what to expect. Look forward to playing at Hilton. I always love playing at the Hilton Festival, and so we'll see you there. Thanks so much for listening to this video. Thanks.